Hey everybody. So my name is Matt Cutts. I'm the head of the US Digital Service. And the question that I get whenever I tell people that is usually, what is the US Digital Service? Because let's be honest, it's a brand that not everybody knows. And so normally I say, do you remember when healthcare.gov fell over and then caught on fire and exploded and shrapnel went everywhere? The US Digital Service is the group of geeks that helped bring healthcare.gov back online. And the next question that I typically get is, are you still able to get good work done in this administration? And I'm happy to say, after a year and a half, we're still working on projects that matter, we're still hiring, and we're still here. The third question that I get is usually from cousins or distant relatives, and they say, Matt, what is it that you actually do? And I'm sure a lot of people in the audience have had that experience as well. And so I can talk about the ways that small businesses need help, doctors and patients, the things that we've done to help people become citizens faster. But on Monday, we marked Memorial Day, which is when we remember people who have given everything in service to their country. And there's a quote that sticks with me that says, the soldier, be they friend or foe, is tasked with the protection of the weak and unarmed. It is the very essence and reason of their being. And so, given this week, I'd love to tell you about some of the work that we've done to help veterans. Veterans are tasked with protecting those people, but they don't always see that same protection themselves. So to talk about some of the work that we've done in Veterans Affairs and to help veterans, I'd like to bring out Gina Kim and Chris to talk about some of the stories and things that we're doing for veterans. Thank you. Thank you.
So, just for a moment, I want you to imagine that you are a veteran. You served in the Air Force in the 1960s, and one day while loading cargo onto a C-130, you lost your footing and fell on your back. Ever since, your back has acted up, but now that you're in your 70s, you can't get a night's sleep without being awakened by an intense pain. Talking with a friend who also served, you learned that you might be eligible for VA disability compensation benefits. But in order to claim those benefits, you'll have to demonstrate that your current back condition is connected to your time in service.
At the time of the fall, you were in your early 20s. Like in many stories we hear, you possibly popped an aspirin, got back to work, never seeing a doctor. And that's a problem because that means you don't have records of your fall. Audience participation time. Raise your hand if your last name starts after the letter H in the alphabet. I have bad news for you guys. Even if you did see a doctor, your records were destroyed in a 1973 fire. And had you known about your VA benefits 50 years ago, you might have filed your claim then, but your back wasn't that bad and you had a pretty good job. Filing today, you're gonna have to go back and recall all those details from decades ago.
Even when the facts are straightforward, filing a claim is no simple matter. Nor is it simple for VA, which must follow an ever-changing set of laws, regulations, and judicial precedent in order to make a decision. And when veterans are not satisfied with VA's decision, they can appeal. More than 150,000 claims are appealed every year on issues ranging from tinnitus to contaminated drinking water, from PTSD to ALS. Appeals take a long time, 5 years or more, to receive a decision from a veterans law judge. And here's the big number. There are currently 400,000 veterans trapped in the appeals process, thousands of whom have been waiting for a decade or longer.
Let's listen to a veteran named Von Trail describe her experience with her appeal.
For me, my appeal went in 2012 and this is 2017. And I still haven't heard anything. To me, I think you heard me say the black hole. I feel like, how are you keeping track of this? To me, it's like, how do you guys keep track of when people did it? I'm pretty sure it may be a database, but I mean, how is it that you make sure that no one falls through the cracks?
The truth is this: sometimes veterans fell through the cracks.
Montrell is right. There is a database. It's called VACLS. It was created in 1979 and has been maintained for more than 3 decades by a single government employee named Jed Wagner. Now, we love Jed, and we even kind of love VACLS despite its eccentricities and old school Power Builder interface. But as Jed will tell you, VACLS was designed for a different world.
In that world, every claim was a paper file, and VACLS tracked these files as they moved across the country. This is a photo of Winston-Salem Regional Office, which was deemed structurally unsound after its floors started to collapse under the weight. So, VA undertook a project to scan all these files. Today, this is what VA offices look like. So instead of tracking something physical, something that can move between location by mail, VACLS now tracks something that only exists on a computer. However, the system where scanned files would be stored was not integrated with VACLS. So, to keep track of what has been scanned, VACLS added a checkbox. If it's checked, appeal has been digitized. If it's left unchecked, it's paper.
After a few years in this new world, though, VA started to find appeals where the checkbox was accidentally left unchecked. Digitized appeals mismarked as paper. When this happens, the appeal is in limbo, as VA is waiting for a paper file to arrive in the mail, which of course it never will. One of the first things our team looked at when we started looking at appeals in 2015 is that we wrote a script to check VACLS against the system where the scan files were stored, and found 2,172 appeals that were mismarked as paper. That's 2,172 husbands and wives, parents, grandparents that fell through the cracks, many for a year or more.
Our team is building a suite of open source tools called CaseFlow, each improving a piece of the appeals process. And our goal is to eliminate as many error-prone checkboxes as possible. But this story is not about bumbling government agencies saved by a bunch of outsider technologists. One element that gets lost in the retelling of this is that it was VA employees that had identified something that was amiss.
Our team rarely comes up with novel ideas for how to improve appeals. Instead, we listen to the experience of the government employees who interact with the appeals process at all levels and raise up and realize their ideas. We're not just re-engineering the technology, we're re-engineering a process from end to end. When even a tiny checkbox can have enormous consequences, we have to take each step of the process in turn and listen to the people who live appeals day in and day out.
But there's another group of people who live appeals day in and day out, the hundreds of thousands of veterans who are waiting. Only a fraction of a percent of veterans fell through the cracks, but many more experienced the uncertainty of not knowing whether their appeal has fallen through the cracks or whether this is just the way the appeals process works. So today, a veteran might be wanting to check their appeal periodically because it takes a long time. And you can do that today by logging onto a website called eBenefits. The information veterans are looking for is at the upper left corner where it says Appeal Pending. Let's listen to a veteran named Charles describe his experience using eBenefits.
On eBenefits, I mostly want to see more of an update on my status. Anytime I go on eBenefits, it just has appeal pending. It doesn't give me any good updates or if it's with the judge or if it's in a process. So I pretty much every day go through the same thing. I look on eBenefits first, then I call EDA to see if any changes have been made.
So every day, Charles logs onto eBenefits hoping to see something different. And when he sees the same appeal pending, he picks up the phone and calls VA every single day. We asked veterans like Charles what they wanted to know about their appeal. Here are some of the things they told us. The most pressing questions were these: how long will it take, and is there progress?
Earlier this year, we released a new appeal status tool on vets.gov. This is what an appeal looks like. The first thing you see here is current status, what is happening now. And the language here directly addresses the things veterans told us they wanted to know, like who is actually looking at their appeal and what they're doing with it. Then the next thing you see is what happens next, and crucially, how long it will take. It shows a dynamic time range specific to an appeal and realistic expectations of how long it will take until the next event. And sometimes, veterans have choices to make. In this case over here, we showed 2 time estimates so that veterans can make informed decisions.
The longest wait in the process is waiting to have your appeal decided by a judge. Judges hear appeals on a first in, first out basis. And because there are so many appeals waiting, it can take years before you reach the front of the line. So we show you the line. And you can see just how many people are ahead of you. And if you check back tomorrow, you'll see that you've moved closer to the front of the line. Now, 153,976 people ahead of you is kind of a scary number, at least to us as the designers of this tool. But we had confidence to launch, scary numbers and all, because we designed this tool with veterans. We showed appeal status to Charles, the veteran who calls every day, and this was his reaction.
If I had this right now, I wouldn't be too worried about my claim. I wouldn't even be getting ready to call them tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. I always give them about an hour break before I call them. So phone lines won't be packed.
What makes appeal status possible is that we took the data improvements of caseflow and connected it with the veteran experience. What we learned designing a tool like appeal status enables us to build a better caseflow and tools that are aligned with how our users understand their information.
In December, after more than 5 years of waiting, Von Trell, the veteran who spoke about the black hole, got a decision: a full grant of benefits. But 5 years is a long time to wait. Just last week, I spoke with a veteran who cannot wait 5 years for his appeal. He was exposed to Agent Orange and now has a disease of the gums. He needs surgery, but he doesn't have dental coverage, and he can't afford to pay thousands of dollars out of pocket. If his appeal is granted, VA will pay for treatment. But every day spent waiting on an appeal is a delay of needed care.
In the August of last year, Congress passed a new law, the Veterans Appeals Improvement and Modernization Act. It's not perfect, but for the first time since the 1930s, we have an opportunity to rethink how the appeals process works from ground up.
We're not going to go in depth about these changes because it's hella complicated. But the basic premise of the law is that instead of requiring everyone to go through every step of the same lengthy process, we can let veterans choose what level of review is needed in their case. Together with some other changes, this means that VA can offer veterans review options that take as little as 4 months. Now, 4 months is a long time, but as compared to years, if it works, that could make an enormous difference for someone like the veteran who needs surgery.
The problem with abandoning the one-size-fits-all model is that it adds complexity to the process. So veterans will now need sufficient understanding of how it all works and how they can make informed decisions. We also have a new behind-the-scenes challenges to implement an entirely new process by the law's February deadline. Yes, it is Valentine's Day next year. Regulations need to be written, procedures developed, and systems upgraded.
We don't have it all figured out, but we know how to figure it out. Just as we've done all along, we're bringing together the technology and the policy and allowing both to be led by user needs, veteran needs. Our most important product is not Caseflow.
It's not vets.gov. Our most important product is how we work bringing all these pieces together. Once you meet your users, it is impossible to ignore the areas where data fails to capture the reality of their experience. And once you dive deep into the process, you cannot unsee how small flaws have enormous ripple effects. So the next time you open your laptop and crank away on working, it's important to keep asking how everything you do affects your users. But also, if your team is awesome and user-centered, it's worth investigating how systems deep within government, technical and otherwise, lead toward that experience. Thank you.